Mr.
Mr. Him.
Oh my gosh, you would,
It doesn't matter.
please
He
don't put
cuts
this
that
on.
out. Welcome to In Conversation with Dennis Powell. I'm Pranati Khanna, and we are going to be talking about who the magnificent Mr. Dennis Powell is and a few fun stories. So, I'm going to start off with the main question that everyone has. First question you'd ask you is how old were you when you first picked up an instrument, and which instrument was it?
I can't even remember. Must have been very small. But my aunt taught me the piano, first of all. And then I learned the mandolin for a while, and the guitar, and then the drums, and it went on. But piano is the first instrument I learned, and it's my first love.
That's awesome. Okay, which musicians or music composers have influenced you the most?
I wouldn't say anybody in particular, but I used to play a lot of classical music when I was young.
Okay.
I did my grades, piano grades at Trinity College Music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was where I started off. So I think, the classical musicians,
Yeah.
Beethoven, Chopin. Chopin is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Yeah, I love his music.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, I played pop and rock and stuff, and then settled down finally with jazz.
So the genres that you primarily love would be top 3 genres.
First of all, now jazz,
Yeah.
because that's where I've settled in.
Jazz daddy of Hyderabad.
Oh, not so much, but yeah, you can say that if you want. But yeah, jazz, and then classical, and then pop. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So what do you think about the music scene in Hyderabad right now, 2019?
I think the music scene in Hyderabad is on fire.
Yeah?
Yeah, because there's so many pubs that have bands playing and a lot of stuff happening.
But is it quality stuff or quantity stuff?
Yeah, quality I think is not much there, but then considering what Hyderabad has to offer to students,
Yeah.
and that's the only way they could get some way when you get to play.
So there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity. Yeah.
I agree.
Because I think even when I started off, I was pushed into conducting the choir in church, and that's where I really picked up a lot of music too.
That's true.
So when you're there and there's nobody else to do the job, and you start doing it, because the musicians, but they're all young students who are doing a lot of music, and I think the pubs and stuff like that. And it's a good opportunity for them to learn.
They have a platform.
True.
But then supposing there's a very mediocre talent on stage and then they get booed or something, what do you say to someone like? What would your advice be?
I think I also got booed many a time.
No
when I was
way.
young. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, really. Say if you're playing in a restaurant and people are sitting eating and they say, "Yeah, band karo yaar, kya baja rahe hain?"
Oh, I know.
I've had that experience too.
Yeah.
Because when you're earning a living and you have to do it as a job, you do it and you have those bats coming to you.
That's true.
But then you take it as it comes.
That's
and
true.
then you're on the shoulder.
That's true. What was your first public performance like? Do you remember how old were you?
Oh, we were a family of musicians.
Yeah.
And we used to play a lot at home. I started playing the guitar for some reason. I think mainly because there was no pianos available in those days.
Yeah.
But I started playing the guitar, and my other brothers started playing the bass and the drums, and we settled down with our own instruments. And then one day somebody came up to us and said, "Why don't you?"
Like a neighbor or something?
Well, it was somebody in Gun Foundry. We used to live a lot in Gun Foundry. My parents lived in Amberpet, but we used to live with my grandmother in Gun Foundry with Anglo-Indians all that. So one of the Anglo-Indians who was having the wedding said, "Why don't you play for my wedding?" So we said, "Okay." So that's how it started.
How was that?
And then what was an awesome experience, and then the next day, of course, you walk down the Gun Foundry streets and all the girls, Powell brothers. Oh my gosh!
Oh, the Powell brothers.
Let's get friendly with them.
So they all would have been dancing to your music the night
Of
before,
course,
no?
yeah. It was at the Caprotti Club. It was a Catholic club. It was called the Caprotti House. It's no more there. It's knocked down. Just near the Gun Foundry Church. Yeah.
Okay, that's so cool. To Dennis Powell, there is performing, there's being a musician, and then there's teaching. I mean, you being a teacher is for all of us, such a huge thing. So there's a lot of questions I have about your teaching life. So what was your first day of being a teacher like?
Well, I started teaching. I was in Hyderabad public school, and the first day I wouldn't remember, but I'll tell you a little incident. I think I was very young when I started. I think I was about 22 and very kaula fellow. So
22.
I was walking past these big, huge, well-standard guys.
Yeah.
And then they looked at me and said, "Hey, come here." So I was taken aback, and I went
The
up to
12th graders said to you,
yeah.
"Hey, come here." Okay, go on.
Public school guys,
Yeah,
they were
that's true.
horrible fellows when I joined school. Zakir Alauddin, I think he was one of my first students.
Okay.
And his elder brother, Saqib. So these guys were all there, and then they say, "Why aren't you in your uniform?"
They thought you were...
The blighters, no, they didn't think. The blighters knew I was a student,
they were
I was a
messing with you.
teacher, but they're messing with me. So they said, "Why aren't you in uniform?" I said, "No, I'm a teacher." "Oh, you're a teacher? Okay, go.
So...
But it was just, I think 3 days later,
Yeah.
when the blighters had to come to my music room and I set up there was no, before that there was no rock band and all in Hyderabad public school. But then I set up the drums and guitar, and they used to have a huge, big, old keyboard, Artronica. So we set it up there, and then invited some of the students who knew. And they were the same bunch of guys who came, and they were, in, I think about 4 or 5 days, they were eating out of my hand.
I bet. And they're all like so fond of you. So you've made a ton of friends and close acquaintances over the years because you've had so many students.
Oh, of course,
right?
yeah,
Like,
a lot of students.
every time we perform also, invariably in the crowd.
Everywhere I go, I find somebody.
Yeah.
I go to a shopping complex, I go to a movie theater, I go, sir.
You're a celebrity in Hyderabad.
No,
I
I'm not a
have to say.
celebrity, but I love it when students come up to me.
Yeah,
and say
because
hi.
they're not just saying hi to you as like some unapproachable person. They
Yeah,
all
yeah.
have a connection with you. They love you.
I think so, yeah.
That I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
is amazing. Yeah, it makes you stand out. So tell me one of your funniest gig stories.
Funniest? I don't know. Gigs were never funny for me. Always very tense.
Some
Because,
drunk
the
fellow
gig has to be...
who came, fell down on the stage, some brawl.
No, I can't remember. But I'll tell you an incident about how tense it was.
Okay.
We were playing for a gig at, I think, HIACC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this was a big show because we were doing a concert.
Mm-hmm.
And there we were all set, and our drummer boy hadn't turned up.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
You remember this? That was all. We were literally pushed onto the stage and said, "You better start. I don't care if your drummer's not here. You just go and play something." I said, "I cannot. How can we do,
How late was Drummer Boy?
I think we went onto the stage and all of us picked up our instruments, and then we see Jack walking down the street
Oh my god.
with his drums and setting it up. Oh, that was
An absolute
heart
attack.
Yeah, it was really. But
Did they give you some time to wait? Did you like stall for a while?
No, I started playing a kind of prelude, and then I don't know why suddenly I heard him. Okay, he's there. So let's go on.
My god.
Yeah.
I would have started crying or something. So my next question, which is a little less about professional life but more about fun personal life.
Yeah.
You've traveled a lot. While that I've known you, you've traveled a fair bit. Tell me about how many places you've traveled to all together, and which is your favorite trip?
Well, I started traveling, I think, only towards the end of my career in HPS when I knew I was going to retire. So I said it's high time I start, moving around and seeing places. So very often I travel to Australia, because that's where most of my family is, and my kids also live there. So Australia is my favorite destination, of course. But I have traveled to America, right all around the east, right? Yeah. East Coast. Yeah. Philadelphia, Washington, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I went to the Bahamas.
You've been to the Bahamas.
I went on a cruise.
Oh my
That was lovely,
god.
So, yeah. places like that.
Yeah.
And then I think my most memorable trip, of course, would have been China.
Yeah.
Because that's where my daughter took me for my 60th birthday. Yeah.
That's so lovely.
So just my daughter, myself, and my brother, and my daughter's partner. Yeah, when we climbed the Great Wall of China, and we just not climbed it, we trekked the 10 kilometers
Wow.
thing, which takes, I think, almost the whole day.
Yeah.
Because you've got to climb and walk and walk.
Did you end it with an epic meal?
Oh yeah, after we came down,
Yeah.
the guide took us to a very fancy restaurant, and we had a Chinese meal and of course a cake they cut for me and all that. I think it's somewhere there on Facebook. The picture.
Any music did you explore in China? Did you explore any pubs that have music?
No, we didn't have the
Didn't
time.
have the
We
time.
just went there on a
Travel.
short trip.
Yeah.
Just travel and have fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Most memorable gig you've attended in your entire life?
Very difficult question because thousands and thousands
Exactly.
of gigs.
Okay, most memorable gig from your previous trip to Australia?
Yeah, in Australia I did gigs, of course, and that was awesome.
Or even one you've attended?
The one that I attended was Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea. Yeah, in Australia. It was awesome because I love jazz. And they were two pianos back to back. And
Crazy.
Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea did this wonderful concert. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Was it in a...
That would have been, it was an auditorium.
Wow.
It was in a closed auditorium. A very serious gig.
Right. I know that your family, obviously, everything that you are today has been like this culmination of all the generations of Powells and good Powell blood.
Yeah.
But at the end of it all, what do you define, or what does family mean to you?
Oh, families.
Everything.
His family is family,
Yeah.
Everything to me. Everything to me, of course. We have a huge, big family. Sadly, not many of them are in Hyderabad now. They're all in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in Australia alone, we have about at least close relatives. Gun Foundry, I think almost all have migrated to Australia.
That's
The
amazing.
few that are left are now, the Anglonis I'm talking about,
Yeah.
are now in Sainik Puri.
Okay.
I think there's hardly a single Anglo that I can think of who live in Gun Foundry. Gun Foundry was the Anglo-Indian
Yeah,
place.
that's what I want to know. What was the Anglo vibe like when all of you together and the parties and what was it like?
We used to have a lot of fun,
Gun Foundry.
In Gun Foundry, because we used to have this Catholic club I told you about, where I did my first gig. So there was, and then the boys and girls of Gun Foundry, I think they have a Facebook page called the Chokras and Chokris of Gun Foundry.
Really?
Yeah. There you'll find a lot of stuff about what we used to do, what fun we used to have. We used to have these pound parties where we used to just take our half-pound party, we take some crap, and then we go there and with just some food, and then somebody brings the music, and then we're dancing the whole night.
Yeah.
We danced till 4 o'clock.
Wow.
I remember we used to do these parties at the studio club that is opposite Begumpet, the VST studio club.
The old one,
The old one, opposite Hyderabad Public School.
Yeah.
So we used to, and in those days we didn't have any bikes or anything. We used to go there by bus, land up there somehow, start the party, and then at 4 o'clock, after finishing the party, the whole gang of us would walk from studio club right across Tangban to Gun Foundry, and we used to go for the mass. The first mass at 4 o'clock. At 5 or 5:30 in the morning was the first mass.
Really?
You go sit in the back benches and all over there. And then go home after that. So, okay.
Mommy, I went to church today.
So that was Gun Foundry, yeah. Yeah, I miss that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but is the Anglo-Indian community still as tight as it was back then?
I think they're tight now in Australia.
In Australia,
Not
they
here,
all
no,
went off
yeah,
over
yeah.
there.
There's a lot. Australia, they have a lot of parties. They have an Anglo-Indian association also there.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
they organize dances.
Just like it was here.
Just like it was here.
So
yeah, just
cool.
like, they used to. They organize dances and the bands there are pretty good. There's a very good band from Madras.
Okay.
Plays beautifully, the Anglo-Indian band, of course.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. Your family and family band The Powells are legendary, of course. My dad talks about how at the VST parties y'all have performed
Yeah, we used to
at
do the VST.
my friends' parents' weddings. There's nowhere
Yeah.
since I've been growing up, I've always heard about the Powell brothers. My mom has talked about you so much. So tell me what it was like growing up with so many cool siblings, like a family band, and your dad was a bandmaster, and your grandfather. Tell me what it was like being in that constant music environment.
I think you're bringing back a lot of memories to me.
Yeah?
Yeah, because when we were kids, we used to live in Amberpet and Gun Foundry.
Yeah.
That
the
used to be
aunt's
always
house.
because Amberpet was where my dad worked as the police.
Okay.
He was a police bandmaster there.
Okay.
But we always loved to be with my grandmother in Gun Foundry because that's where the action was.
Yeah, yeah.
But when we used to have practice, we used to go to Amberpet.
Yeah.
Because there we had the band room was always available to us, the equipment was always available to us. I remember we used to have these practices. We used to start at around 10 o'clock in the morning and go on till around 7 o'clock in the evening.
What are you saying?
Continuously we used to practice.
Wow.
My brothers and myself, and we used to have another friend of ours, Edward Morris, who used to sing for us. So my mom used to make ball curry and rice and that's all. And then we used to just practice, eat, and go back and practice. And I love those days because and my dad used to let us do what we did and let us try to figure out the chords and everything. And he'd be listening in the next room. And then when we really cannot get it, he'll come there and tell us, hey, what the hell you fellows are doing? This is what you have to do. You do this. And then he said, oh, shit, it's so simple. And then we didn't realize it.
Right.
Yeah, so that was my dad for us. He always used to come and just at the right time and tell us what to do. But most of the time, that's how we learned. Because we learned, my dad, of course, helping us. But he let us figure out things by ourselves. Yeah.
And then because all of the brothers and sisters played different instruments together, you had your own band, and so you jam all the new songs that were coming out.
Yeah, we didn't have to wait for anybody to come. And because we were always there, the kids were always there, mom and dad and all of us.
Just
hey,
come, let's
that's it.
Amazing.
That's it. So that way, I think, it was much easier.
Yeah. I mean, we have to book a jam room, call everyone.
And then not everybody's available.
Not everyone's available.
Yeah. Then when you're all at home.
So cool.
Yeah, so that's how it was. So it was like Sunday, everybody's at home. You have to have a meal together with mom and dad.
Yeah.
So always, all at Amberpet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Jam.
Amazing.
Few moments later.
So we are back to In Conversation with Dennis Powell, and as you can see, we've moved location. Before we go any further, I want to ask you what this is.
Well, this is what my father made for my mother the year before, just a couple of months before he died. And he gave it to her and said, Daff. He called her Daff. Daff, I'm not going to be here next year with you. And he started to cry.
Oh, God.
And Daff is doing like stupid. But true enough, he presented this to her for her birthday in October.
Okay.
And he said, this is going to be my last Christmas. And then in February next year, he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah. But this was crafted. Everything was done by his hand.
It's a very perfectly made thing. So he used to make stuff usually, or?
Yeah. He was an all-rounder. This guy, my father, I think, that's why he has 7 of us, and 7 of us have different of his talents.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Because, he was into electronics.
Yeah.
He was into carpentry. He was into doing stuff like this. He, of course, was into music. He was into bookkeeping.
Wow.
His bookkeeping was meticulous. Yeah. He used to keep accounts for the band and stuff like that. And I used to see his books were meticulous. He used to do by himself. Never had an accountant or anything. So, he was a multifaceted guy. Yeah. But, of course, music was his main. First.
Tracking back to the last question that I had about all of you siblings jamming together, I know that my sister and I were fairly competitive with each other growing up, but that's more to keep each other going, like to inspire each other to get better. So was it like that with the Powell siblings as well?
No, I don't think so. Because, see, all of us had our own strong points.
Yeah.
Like, I was good in organizing, vocal harmonies, figuring out chords and stuff. Savio was good at finding out mistakes. He is a very good critic, I tell you, till today.
So wrong note, bum note, wrong
bum
chord.
note. If you play a wrong note, if you're singing a wrong harmony, he says, hey, there's something wrong. Then we stop and then we'll argue about it, of course, because I want to show that I did it correctly. But then he would prove that I was wrong, and then so that way. Ronnie, he was again a multifaceted guy because he used to play the guitar, the bass guitar, and sing. Which is not very common.
That's not common.
Not common. And to play the bass guitar and sing is, need some real strong talent.
Yeah.
So he was the leader of the band because he was the guy who used to get the contracts. And because I am not a guy to do business.
So you do your marketing and booking and stuff.
Yeah. Ronnie used to do the booking and stuff and talk to the clients and stuff. So that was a strong point. So we knew what everybody had to do in the band.
So the Powells were a company.
Company. Like.
You all were a company.
Yeah, a company that never grew.
But still, now you're legends. So that's amazing.
Yeah, we used to always imagine, you always had the dream of, being on a huge, big stage. We did some big shows also.
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't go far enough because I think when Ronnie moved out to Australia and Rita and Leonie, my sisters, moved out, we kind of settled in with other things to do. Like I started playing the piano at the Taj Krishna. Yeah. So gigging wise, I think for a long time while playing at Taj Krishna, I hardly gigged. I used to gig, of course, the solos, doing piano gigs for weddings and stuff, like just playing the grand piano and stuff. But
so was it all commercial and not just stuff that you loved?
Yeah, of course. Every time you when you play for a living, it's always the stress is always there. That you do it well for the client, but at that time you're not really enjoying yourself.
True.
But now with the jazz band, of course, it's fun because Humayun comes in with his trumpet, George comes with the sax, and you come here, and then it's different. It's just good fun. It's good fun,
And everyone's friends.
Everybody are friends,
But what would your advice be to all of us commercial artists who have to play the same set like 15 times in a month?
Don't take advice from me.
You have to. You have to give us advice.
No, come again, you said?
So, advice to commercial artists like, say, me, Keith, everyone who has to play the same set of songs like so many times in a month just to entertain guests.
I've been through that phase. I think this is what you have to do if you have to do it for a living.
Yeah.
You do it. I know fantastic singers like, Sonia Saigal. She was here singing in Taj Krishna. I said, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
You should be, she said, I've got to make a living.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to
what do you do? Yeah,
you got to, choose. You have to choose.
There's a lot of musicians who have the privilege to be able to just do their own music and carry on.
Exactly. But sadly for us who are not that, I think for the rich big bugs it's okay.
Yeah. What do you think would have helped all the talent that had to go commercial and crowd pleasing? What do you think would have helped us not go in that direction? Do you think that we could have had some more support in some way from the community or in Hyderabad or what?
No, I don't think so. And support from the community, I don't think you will get in Hyderabad. Yeah. But we all did it on our own steam, and I think everybody else has to do it the same way.
Yeah, you just have to.
Yeah, you just have to
dash on. Tell me about the influence that your father had on you.
My father had a great influence on me because I remember again getting pretty nostalgic because I remember him when we were young in Amberpet. He would sit me down under the stars evening after dinner, and he would ask me questions about music, and then he'd go on about theory after theory about music, and that's how I learned most of my theory from him. And that's where I think I got a lot of support from my father. when it came to music.
Education-wise, he just taught you so much. That you
Of course,
Amazing.
yeah.
And what about his consistency with being as a musician? Like, you have a schedule. Did he put you on a schedule? Make you
No.
practice
My father was pretty laid back that way.
Okay.
He never bothered about us in a way, because it was all my aunts who looked after us and my
Yeah.
grandmother and he hardly had any say in the family. He used to mind his own business
Yeah.
with his band.
Yeah.
But of course, he was such a fantastic musician, I tell you, because the one thing he could do was, while you're singing, he could write down the music in notation form
What do you
in
s-
any key. You say in 3 sharps, you would put 3 sharps there, and you sing a song, and you write down the notation.
His ear was that
very,
brilliant.
very good, very good.
Wow.
He had a very good ear and a very good sense of having to write music
Yeah.
and arrange music. So I used to see him arranging music for operas. Like Rosie Convent used to have these operettas, these Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, and I think we had at least 4 good operettas which were done in Ravindra Bharati.
Okay.
And my father did all the music wrote all the music.
All the sheets
Yeah,
were...
the sheets were written from the piano score. He would take it and write different parts for different instruments. So we had, I think, a euphonium, a sax, a trumpet, and a clarinet
Okay.
for the band section.
Yeah.
And then my father would play the piano.
Okay.
And that's how.
So the piano was also his primary.
Yeah, of course, the piano was his primary. When he started playing in the band, he was a clarinet player.
It was a clarinet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then I think for a few months, and then he took over as the bandmaster. So yeah, there's one more thing I want to tell you about him being the bandmaster. My grandfather was the last one to play the British national anthem, to conduct the British national anthem.
Okay.
And my father was the first one to conduct the Indian national anthem
Wow.
for the state of Hyderabad.
That's amazing. You should tell us their full names so that we know this trivia. Your
Yeah,
grandfather...
was Joseph George Powell, and my
Joseph
father
George
was George Powell.
Wow. So the last British national anthem and then the first Indian national anthem with the band. That's amazing. That is some...
Oh, sorry, because I didn't even see my grandfather. He died before I was born.
Okay.
So that's why I think it was John Frederick Powell. Yeah,
Frederick.
It was John Frederick Powell. I get mixed. His father was again some George Powell.
Okay.
But my father picked it up from his grandfather, I think.
Not his father.
Yeah, not
Okay.
his father. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to reach the end of this interview with a few silly questions. Starting with, what's your favorite food?
Yeah, I love food, and I love cooking too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
Or what's the first thing you would eat when you land in Australia?
Yeah, I would go for what's the thing called? It's a big pot
Ramen.
of soup.
Laksa?
Yeah, laksa, curry laksa.
Yeah, curry laksa.
The Malaysian curry laksa is like, they have these cockles and mussels and a lot of seafood in it, and then there's the seaweed in it. Oh, I love that stuff. It's one particular place.
Yeah.
That I think they serve it. And
So you get off and you go straight
go
there.
straight for it. I said, first thing, I want my curry laksa.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your favorite movie? Recently. Best movie you've seen?
Recently, yeah, I think Mission Impossible, the last one that came. I don't know which
The
one.
last
was it.
Mission
Yeah,
Impossible? Okay.
Mission
That's your favorite that you've seen over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite TV show that you've seen in the recent past?
TV show recently, I've been watching Superstar Singers or something on Sony.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was watching the kids sing.
Then
And not because I wanted to watch, because my brother watches, and then when I started watching, I just got drawn to it. I'm not so much a Hindi guy, but watching these kids sing is tremendous.
Brilliant talent.
Brilliant talent. They're fantastic. Yeah, the last show was 2 days ago, the finals, and it was awesome to watch these kids sing. The range of notes they have, and the harkats that they do, and
Right.
tremendous.
Tremendous. Your thoughts on indie music in India right now?
Indie. I think eventually India has to be Indian in Hindi. Yeah.
Indie
And,
as
yeah.
an independent music. Like independent releases of music, like original music.
Original music, okay. Original music. I think there are a few bands. Like I think Karthik's band does some independent stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that way. I don't know of many bands that do independent stuff, but it's a nice thing to have your
Siddharth
own.
Bendy. one of
Siddharth
your
Bendy, of
students.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, Siddharth Bendy.
Yeah.
He's my pet.
Yes.
Yeah, he's one awesome guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a few of them. I know you might be knowing more of them because you're more in the circle, but I think just with the jazz band and
Yeah. But whatever little of the independent music,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
even from Bendy, like,
yeah,
what do you
I think-
think of the quality of the kind of music that's been coming out?
I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good because Bendy himself is a very talented guy. Songsmith's also doing a
Yeah.
very good job.
Yeah.
I went for a gig recently at
Yeah.
Moonshine. I think they had a gig.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yeah.
Okay. Thing you're most afraid of?
I'm afraid of the dark.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh my god, me too. I can't sleep with the light off.
Yeah.
The bathroom light has to be
yeah, for me also. I think some light, the window has to be open with some light outside coming
Or
in.
you think ghosts are going to be there?
No, I don't know. I just have this
Claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get claustrophobic in the dark. Okay, most exhilarating moment you can recall?
What will it be? I don't know.
Like when
I'm
you
doing
were
62
most-
years
Wow.
now, with, and there's so much that happened in life. I think there's so many ups and downs,
Yeah.
and ups. I just forget about them. I think I've got a problem with my memory, short-term memory at least. And I remember a lot of things that happened a long time ago. I look at my jazz band and I really wish that, our jazz band will go somewhere, someplace. We really practice.
We're going to
and
make
do
some
make
exhilarating moments with the jazz
Absolutely.
band. Come on.
Yeah.
This year you're going to make it happen. This year, next year. Come
You'll
on.
be there.
Yes,
You
yes.
should be there.
Yes. Make this happen. Okay. One thing people don't know about you.
I think you should be able to tell me.
Let me think. And I'm thinking. One thing that people don't know about Dennis is...
What's something that people don't know about me? I think my whole life is an open book here. Everybody knows what I am and what I do. And
True.
yeah. So
But like
it's-
some stupid habit that you have or something.
Oh,
Some rubbish.
yeah, probably I think about the being afraid in the dark, and then nobody. I was
One-
never told
no.
any, nobody.
Okay, this I
nobody
have.
wouldn't have told anybody.
Don't play
You're the
with
first
dark.
person I told.
Dennis is a bit of a- One thing that people don't know about Dennis is that he knows so many people that he can't remember all of their names.
Of course, I can't.
There's a
Sometimes
100
I get.
million people.
Yeah, sometimes I go with my brothers. Jerry, Mario, Jerry. What's your name?
That's okay. My mom calls me Snowy, and Snowy is my dog.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
I think they will forgive me. Everybody forgives me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've kind of get around it when I don't know somebody's name. I learn.
Because you know exactly who they are.
Yeah, I
just don't know what they're called.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is forgivable.
I love Bendy.
Yeah.
But sometimes suddenly when I look at it, the name doesn't come suddenly.
Shashank.
Shashank. Oh, sorry, Bendy.
One thing about you that you would like to change.
My habits, you think? Yeah, my forgetfulness maybe.
Okay.
My forgetfulness is terrible. At home I'm called the Bulakad. Because I forget my keys, I forget my wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to work on that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final question. Advice for all young musicians.
I just play, enjoy, and learn.
And learn.
Yeah, that's important, of course.
So important.
Very important. Learn and enjoy, most of all, what you're doing. And love what you're doing. And just play on.
What are the resources that young aspiring musicians should be making use of when learning now?
I think the internet has a lot of you get a lot of stuff on the internet, you get a lot of stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm available if anybody wants to learn.
Yeah.
I've already said on YouTube that if anybody wants to learn jazz.
Facebook.
No, on Facebook, sorry.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to learn jazz, they can come and spend some time with me. Yeah, so that's what would be. That's what
Learn from the best and figure out the rest.
Yeah.
Just right. Thank you so much.
Internet.
Internet, actually, yeah, I learned how to play the guitar. And my 6 chords that I know.